Okay, so I talked to Vince because it wasn't just myself, but 7 of the Northwest Multihull Association members have decided to join the Safety at Sea program. And my thought was maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea for all of us to just kind of get a little refresher, a little review. I built this particular slideshow so it would be very friendly to screenshot and just has information based on that. I am going to hit a lot of quick facts and some information that may be ideal to keep as a screenshot and reference back to later on. So go ahead and get started. This is going to be a roundtable discussion of the 2023 Safety at Sea Offshore offered by US Sailing Association and then done by the Sailing Foundation. We have 7 active members for the Northwest Multihull Association who did join our meeting. The program consisted of 11 to 12 hours of online courses that covered 15 topics, following a 12-day full-day course of lessons, review, and hands-on training. And the initial cost was $350 for the program, and then the additional online lab was an additional $150 USD. Came out to about $300 or $500. And one of the very first things that we got into was how important life jackets are. I mean, everyone knows that, but it was just really interesting to hear. What I think all of us took away was the Gasp reflex, which is something that we've heard of, but we've never really explored in detail. At least I haven't. And it's really changed the way that I'm going to be having people on my sailboat and how I'm going to look. Cold water immersion and the 1-10-1 cold shock response. The moment you hit the water, you're going to be gasping. It's just a natural thing that your body is going to do. Natural and unpreventable gas reflex. It's going to cause you to take in water if your head has been submerged. And as soon as you come up in the water, you're going to be choking. You're going to be trying to get this water out. And that initial immersion is going to leave you feeling pretty crippled in that very moment. That there, as for the 1-10-1 rule, is the first minute. Cold incapacitation limits movement, decreases in strength.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I have a quick question on that. The gas.
Yeah.
I asked this, maybe somebody else got better information, but it seems to me as you're falling into the water,
Right.
it would be good to take a deep breath so your lungs are full when you hit the water. So when you gas, you get less water.
I would strongly encourage it. The idea of safety, though, is just for all things that are not preventable. So is to make sure that if you do fall in the water, of course, I would like to plug my nose and take a deep breath before I go in. But, you know, the idea, more importantly, is trying to stay on board. And that's going to be one of our next topics. But I hear you 100%. I mean, that's much better than going in wanting air.
Yeah, well, I think at least the segment that I was in, they talked a little bit about that. And you know, apparently the reflex is not just that you inhale once, it's just that you start to not be able to have your breathing under control. So you hyperventilate.
Oh,
You're not just, you know, it's not like you just gasp.
For those at home, what he's referring to is it's more of it's not just one big gas, but it's hyperventilating from when you initially hit the water, the shock of it.
So you have a minute to get that under control, basically.
Right. And then the next, Jeff, if I can have you come up here.
This is where I get to
We're
be
gonna do something for cold capacitation,
on the crash
and then we'll come back to it later.
Crash test dummy.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw 4 quarters in right now. Okay.
Look, I can pick them up now too.
All right. So there's going to be 4 here.
Somebody
And
needs to
let me get a
explain
timer.
if the Zoomers can see this.
I don't know. They should. Well, I don't know how to do it. I don't want to lose this
Yeah,
whole
Johnny.
thing again. So what we're doing is we're setting up a bowl of ice cold water, and I'm going to have him dip his hand in right now. It's warm, right?
Yeah.
You got your sleeve up. He's a lefty, and he is going to try to collect the quarters as quickly as he possibly can. So let's go ahead, set, go. Bring them out. Get quarters. Get the quarters. Okay.
Order, right?
Yeah. Wow. Try.
Oh, you make it all.
Yeah. Once you get all of them.
It's a race.
It is a race. Excellent.
4, right?
Okay. Yeah. So it took him 21 seconds, and he was kind of being a goofy as well. So that's good. Now I need you to go ahead and leave your hand in there. We're going to continue the presentation. You're going to leave it in there for 4 minutes.
This is the painful part.
You need to have your floor on.
Okay, so limited movement, decrease in strength, as what US Sailing stated, up to 20%. And this is going to be in the first 10 minutes after you've collected your breath and everything's coming together. After the COB, the crew that's overboard regains their breath, and before their ability of movement becomes limited, assess your conditions and surroundings and make a plan. After this, which we're going to see about cold water immersion, it's going to be much more difficult, possibly even impossible, to climb up a boarding ladder after 10 minutes, 15 minutes in water, especially in the Pacific Northwest. So during this time when you're making a plan, activate any beacon devices you have, whistles, sound devices, MOBs, EPIRB, and then also reflective materials. Make sure that those are visible. If you have a pocket mirror in this daylight, that's a great time to use that. If you have a beacon flashlight, get that a twist and get the light going. And then of course, if you have EPIRBs, these are great too. You just undo the strap, open it up, and it's been activated. So these are all good devices to carry on your life vest. Conserve your body heat. Most of your heat is going to be losing through your armpits and your groin. So being able to keep those areas closed will help preserve your ability to maneuver when the time comes where you need to get somewhere else. And there is no real advantage to removing your shoes or boots. Found out. So probably just leave them on. It will make it easier when you're trying to climb up most boarding ladders. They can feel a little sharp on the feet, but if you end up having to go to shore or swim to shore, that will help you, of course, moving along and get to where you need to go. And then after about an hour of this, whoops, it's okay. We can just plug it in right here.
This doesn't come out of my time, does it?
You still got 2 minutes, dude. Yeah. All right, and then after that, hypothermia kicks in, and this is loss of consciousness. Now, for more information, take the course, or even consider taking on the 1 through 15 topics for $150 safety at sea online. Very helpful information. You can learn a lot more about all these stages. We're just kind of hitting the nitty gritty. But most importantly, as we all agree, is be prepared. What you have on you when you fall in the water is all you're going to have on, or all you're going to have to help you while you're in the water. And most importantly, be a PFD. And we'll get into those a little bit more. Yes.
I had a thought on this. I do the diving, I do some of the cleanup on the bottom of the boat. And I have a dive suit, a dive gear and so forth. And I noticed a vast difference in diving on the boat, say in late August, here in Liberty Bay, area, temperature was 60, like that. And then I tried it again much later, and the temperature had really gone down in the water.
Right.
And even with all the equipment I had, my time span in the water, and we're just talking Northwest waters because it's all cold. But those additional down 5 degrees, 10 degrees make a huge difference.
They're very significant.
In your ability to function. And I was toast after a much shorter time. I can feel my own self losing it.
I hear you.
And got out of the water, but it was way sooner than I expected.
You know, and then also when you're wet in lieu of dry, that has a significant change in the temperature as well. They had a couple examples of that, and there was a fluctuation of 6 degrees between a thermometer that was wet, but still at the same temperature outside, had been sitting for 24 hours. But just because it was wet, the condensation of it, or the consistency of it, made it colder. All right, buddy.
Hey, Scott.
Is it?
Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
Ready? So we're gonna get our timer or stopwatch ready. We'll reset it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and lift your hand up. All right, just put those quarters in. Go ahead and grab those for me. Are you noticing the difference in the movement?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, can you collect those? There's one.
Shit.
This is just 4 minutes in cold water, and this is just his hand. Now imagine your whole body in wet clothing experiencing this. This can make it hard to swim. It could make it hard to grab a Lifesling. or throwable road. So taking that first 10 minutes before you're really beginning to shiver hard.
I can't feel the quarters.
There you go. Can you turn that on for me too? It's your beacon right there. Can you just go ahead and give that a twist? Other way. There you go. Good job. Right, then power on this radio. Okay, there you go. Very good. Okay.
It's not easy though.
No, it's not easy at all.
It'll be much easier when you're ready.
Thank you, Jeff, for your
All right.
assistance in that. So, and his time was a little bit closer to about a minute, 20 seconds to almost a minute to grab four quarters out of the ice
Only a
ball.
teeny portion of my body.
Hey, Scott?
Yeah.
This is Pete Patello. One thing
Hi,
that
Pete.
I know we have in the northern Great Lakes with the Chicago, Mac and Bayview is actually we're running Mustang anti-exposure suits
Okay.
up there. We found that especially when you're just sailing in that cold of water, I mean, upper 30s, even low 40s out in the middle of Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
we'll run those suits and that really, even over top of dry suits, over top of wet suits. And those suits, if you fall in the water, they float. It's designed to be keep you alive for 10 hours at 30-degree water.
Great. Would you mind putting the name of that Mustang, whatever it was, in the chat board?
I sent it to Vince, but I can, again.
Yeah, just so everyone could read into
Yeah.
it. We always review those and add them to our YouTube notes as well. So thank you.
And then one other point, go ahead.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, one other point too, again, as a overboard, I know this is a controversial subject, but the crotch straps that a lot of the jackets now have, or a lot of the races are requiring, we found that we're in the cold water, practicing this at the safety at sea. Having that crotch strap really allowed you to get in a fetal position to hold your, protect your temperature and hold, stay warmer longer. So I know people don't like that, but if you're in those situations, having that on will allow you to survive longer.
Okay. Okay.
Why are crotch straps controversial?
I'm just saying because maybe there's not in this room, but there is in other parts of this country where nobody wants to have to wear the bloody things.
Yeah.
They are mandatory for the MAC races and several of the events we do, and my crew all runs them. But again, some guys just think they're too, mostly guys, I guess, think they're too constrictive or whatever, but they definitely make a big difference when you're in the water.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we just got a few more slides to go through, but again, I want to just go ahead and iterate. I'm not training a course here. These are things that we just picked up on and we thought were very important for us to remember. And we thought it would be important to share with you. And this was a collective of Sean, Jeff Oakleaf, and myself. The second one is overboard prevention, probably much more important to not fall off the boat. Rescue is extremely difficult regardless. The safest thing to do is stay on the boat, of course. Taking the precautions and practicing are the real elements. So if it happens, you're gonna have an idea on what to do and what works best for your boat and where the equipment is. So to assist in recovery of the person, we're gonna do 3 stages of it. Assist in recovery, I recommend either going with the Lifesling product, which is from the Sailing Foundation. This is a wonderful product that consists of long horseshoe that's connected over to a bridle that will tighten as the person loops themselves in. The most formal way would be to have them come around their shoulders, and it also provides a great lifting point. When it comes to the actual lifting, I don't think they can see me anyways, can they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they
Yes,
can?
They can.
Oh, wow,
Mhm.
that's cool. And then when you're using a halyard to hoist, don't necessarily loop here, but get it right here at the bridle. Now, this is complemented with, I think this is about 100 feet of floating line. And then, of course, in order to make it all work, make sure the bitter end is tied off to your boat. System I used last year in the race to Alaska was a little bit simpler because I didn't have a pulpit. So I went with a traditional buoy horseshoe, a Jim buoy, and then a Scotty throwable line with the bitter end tied off. When you do get back to your boat after this meeting, take that opportunity to take that line, and the whole thing should just be able to cast right out. So no knots, no ties, anything. And the way that you repack this, you lost my bitter end. There's a little floatable on it. Might have to just do the rest of this later, but instead of taking all of this and coiling, you're just going to take about 6 inches at a time. And you're just going to go ahead and stuff it in the bag. 6 inches, stuff it in the bag. And the proper way of what they call faking the line. So you'll be able to deploy it without any knots or ties and get the full length of the road out. Okay, the second is getting them back on board. So now that that person has fallen overboard, you've securely been able to grab them. One more quick thing. This throwable is totally just fine. These are great because most of the time you're gonna have this in your cockpit anyways, sitting on it. The only disadvantage is once you throw it and they recover it, you still have to recover both the float and the person. So go ahead and use it as an intention of marker, but would be a great idea for anybody to have some sort of way that they can retrieve the person without actually having to get the boat too close to it. Second is going to be getting back on board. Now, a swim ladder is certainly an option, but as you noticed, as soon as the cold starts to head in, you don't really have that mobility. So halyards are a great way to go, especially if you're doing from one side of the boat. A fiddle block, which essentially looks like the main sheet for a lot of our trimarans. So it's just multiple purchases with a locking cleat.
You got a question?
Yeah.
I think in the course, they actually recommended the fiddle blocks for the Lifesling, only because it gives you more flexibility of pick point. Because there have been instances where people would take like a halyard and they would lead it aft, and then the halyard would shape and snap.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
And it allows you to also monitor the person coming out of the water and to be there to put a hand on them if need be, in lieu of walking all the way back to your primary winch and cranking away while they're 5-10 feet away.
How much purchase is it? 4 to 1 enough to get somebody out of water? Weighs 250 pounds?
3 to 1 is what
Is 3 to 1?
Yeah, 3 to 1 is what they provided us with, but 3 to 1, 4 to 1. But also they said that, make sure that the road is long enough so you could run it through a block and bring it back to a winch if it's someone like Morgan trying to pick me out of the water.
Yeah. So,
and if you don't have these items, consider other things you may have around, say an extra sail or a sea anchor. They have a very rigid round bridle to them, so that could work, and that will help out for horizontal boarding. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with brute strength.
the ladders, I've been wondering about, I know on your 760, you got a beautiful little ladder right next to the motor.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm thinking that is because you're going to oftentimes be maneuvering under motor to try to pick somebody up.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Unless you're in the race to Alaska.
Right.
Yeah. And then providing life-saving assistance. This is really easy gear to have on your boat and probably not a bad idea. I always bring a tarp with me in case I stove the boat or I need to get water collection or something happens. But the next step you have to do, you're not done yet, is trying to bring this person's temperature back up in their core. Yes?
I was just going to say, getting folks back on board is very dependent on your boat. It's definitely something to think about all the time.
Right.
Rather than after something's
right.
Taking place, and there's definitely no one size fits all.
Yeah. Elizabeth, who also was joining the course, made a point of saying that obviously every boat's going to be different, freeboard's going to be different. So being able to take a look at your inventory and finding out what works, very important. That's about right. Very good.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
We'll add one more thing to this. One of the challenges that we're having at US Sailing is that, and we're working on that on the Austin event. Did they really, on this kind of recovery, did they focus at all on multi-hull, or was it all monohull?
It was all monohull.
Yeah, we're trying to build that, because for multi-hull, if you try to bring somebody back in on the windward side, you're going to pound them into the surf with your AMA. You don't want to ever bring somebody on your windward side in rough seas. Yeah. And so there's some of that. There's also on that lifeline, putting a loop in it 15-20 feet back where you winch somebody in and then hook your halyard to that and just lift them out.
Okay.
There's some other methods that are being worked right now, lift line methods that are even different than they're probably teaching in the course you just did. So part of this is we really want to develop more specific multi-hull. Again, every boat's different, but multi-hulls are enough different than a monohull that we need to do something a little bit more focused on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, unfortunately, we don't have the conference speaker, so.
Yeah, so I'll be repeating.
Yeah.
Just one real quick comment, that's that, while they did, talk most about it, there were people there with things like, TP52s, and they did discuss the fact that even the faster monohulls had the same problem, light displacement, very high aspect oils, and the difficulty of, applying some of these rescue techniques. They're very similar to the problems we have with multi-hulls.
Yeah. All right.
I'd like to say one thing about the PFD and getting back on the boat.
Okay.
I think it's critical to have a point where you can attach a snap shackle. If you're gonna use a halyard,
Yeah.
be able to just, don't have to do a knot, and you don't have to hold your arms down to use the Lifesling. If you have an attachment point and you have those crotch straps, you can just haul somebody up just like a sack of potatoes.
You're absolutely right. And once again, going back to the points that have been coming around is you might look silly, but you're not silly. You're taking care of yourself and you're making sure your crew is taking care of themselves. So having things, as Ben's pointed out, having a way to snap in on your life preserver and also having those leg straps, you're really doing everyone a favor, even if you do look silly. And then of course, at the end of this, providing life-saving assistance, so we get to the next slide. This is no time to be shy. If you have somebody who is freezing and you're in a cold situation, whatever you can do, and that includes body on body, you really, there's a lot of damage that could still happen to a person. So try to get their wet clothes off, taking like a plastic tarp, sleeping bag pads, sleeping bags, foil emergency blanket, wrapping them up, keeping them warm, taking hot water and putting in bottles and putting underneath their armpits and in their groin area. All of these things will help to bring that person and resuscitate them. So, there you go. That was another thing that we learned from another topic. This slide was provided by Jeff. I just did a little editing to it and I like it. So on the boat side, what can you do? Have a VHF fixed and a handheld, and then a Dan buoy, a mom aid or another. Those are all wonderful products to have. Crew side, on your life jacket, consider what you have in there. Most of the upper end hydrostatic life jackets are going to have a whistle already built into them, but double check that, and we're going to look into those. Small waterproof light, a strobe, a POB with DSC or AIS. Personally, Jeff would like a snack too. One of the other items that was brought up a lot, and Margaret was bugging me with it pretty much half the day, is she has a little plastic reflective mirror and she loves it. She's completely sold in, has a little hole cut through the middle. So in daylight, you can just pull this out, see where you're pointing at, and be able to signal to those. Because even though you're going to be in the water, you're going to have your yellow life vest, you're really only going to be about that high off of the water surface. So having that mirror, that constant beacon, really helps, and it is bright. And then the MOB procedure, in very vague terms, yell, point, mark the COB on your GPS, mark the pit position in your chart plotter, and then make the Mayday call. So most importantly, if you have the ability to have multiple crew members on board, have somebody designated as the pointer, using their arm or perhaps even a stick, so they can keep a focus, and allowing the helmsman to be able to follow them and control the boat, reduce sail or whatever maneuvers need to be done.
I forgot to put stop.
Well, sometimes you can't slow the boat down. If you were in the proving grounds, there's no way you could have slowed the boat down. You did the best thing you could do is try to turn around and get close. All right.
Hey, Scott,
Yes, sir.
one other thing that we've added as well is, so again, there you go, and you want to train, you test, you try these different methods so you know you can do it and train the crew. But we found too that a lot of times, sometimes we don't all get on the same boat but once every 6 months or 3 months or whatever. And so on the way out to the race course, take the time to re-review all of your man overboard procedures so that everybody's fresh. Where's the button you push? All this stuff is fresh in their minds just prior to the event. So just another added thing people should look at.
Great point. Very good point. Okay, next we're going to step into fire safety. This one I was really interested in. For me, I outfit a lot of new boats these days, and there's a lot of complicated systems and a lot of different materials and flammable things that could occur. So I built this out for you guys so you can see what kind of fire extinguishers would be best for you. They are rated by by letters. Class A, or known as ash. This is going to be your chimney fires, wood, paper, hay, rubbers. And these are typically can be extinguished with water or an ABC rated dry chemical fire extinguisher. And those are the ones that make a lot of mess, and they'll make a hard shell on things. Not necessarily the best that I have been learning for a lot of boats. So what I really like are the class B and C. Class B, which are going to be your gasolines or diesels, oil, paints, grease. These can easily be extinguished with a baking soda. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to start the oxygen from the fire. So ABC dry chemical will work, or you could also use a BC carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide isn't going to make a mess. So if you do have an engine fire that occurs over by your fuel pump and you use an ABC, you might have caked that thing so much that your pulley wheels aren't going to run anymore. But with a BC, you can still put out that fire and possibly be able to turn that engine back on and get yourself to safety. That's why I like it. Class C is electrical. And as we're going to cover right here, you're going to see this is serious stuff. This is loose screws that are behind your 12-volt panel. This is an arced reverse polarity connection to your batteries. And the beat goes on. And what they actually do is they start a B or A fire. So disconnecting power to try to reduce the heat, because that's how it starts, is a good plan. And then looking at a class A or B fire extinguisher method. I also really like the fire blankets. I'm putting one in my own galley, and I'm putting one on every single catamaran I sell now. I think those are fantastic to just be able to put something out really quickly, where galley fires are going to happen, which make up for 1% of most fires. And so when most people think LPG is the most dangerous thing to have on board, in fact, it's not. 55% of fires on boats are electrical related. Most causes are due to chafe or exposed wiring, or shore power, or battery issues, which we're going to get into that in class D fires as well. 24% are engine fires, mostly from overheating. 8% are from fuel leaks, and then 1%, which are going to be galley fires, and around 1% as well, I think, is what you're going to have for LPGs, the boats actually exploding. So it's actually not as serious as this. And this was a very alarming for me to hear. Class D, everyone has lithium batteries on their lot. And there is a new company, I've done a lot of research on them, pop them up on the next slide. They, I'm actually going to probably start distributing them locally here too. This is for lithium ion batteries. It's called AVD. And this goes a little bit about how it gets put out and what it does. It does require you to get quite close and spraying this chemical on vigorously to help cool the battery down is ultimately what it does. Otherwise, none of the ABC fire extinguishers is going to be able to put out a heavy metal fire. So if you are considering lithium ion batteries, as a lot of my clients do, this is going to be mandatory over in the battery.
My understanding is that these don't put out the LiPo batteries.
That's right.
Is that, yeah?
Yeah, so from everything that I've been able to read, it's only going to put out the battery type. Yes, the iron phosphate. So now this is not a USCG approved product, but
Other way around.
what?
Other way around.
Lithium iron.
It's the LiPo, the phosphate. iron
So-
phosphate.
Well, the master bolt's the same. And actually, I did bring something for us to share a little bit later.
Rocket
Yes.
science.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Please.
these don't work very well on the lithium iron phosphate. That said, the lithium iron phosphates are the ones that are less likely to catch on fire for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you have a cell phone battery, or if you have a lithium manganese dioxide,
Right.
which is your standard lithium ion, any of those, if it's small enough, these will definitely do the job.
Excellent. Thank you.
An electric car.
I don't know about
If you have an electric car, you need a much bigger one.
that. Ed Sherman from Professional Boat Builders in last month's magazine actually wrote an entire write-up on the lithium ion batteries and kind of the movement and recommendations. He's an ABYC instructor as well. So if anybody is considering that, I would consider looking into that as well. Okay, now this is kind of fun. The proper way to make a Mayday call or a pon call. I never really thought about it that much, but there's a way that you can do it that will make it a little bit easier for everyone to know what's happening. Practice this on your own time without pushing the button in, and have some fun with it. So for this example, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is sailing vessel toast. Sailing vessel toast. Toast. My position is 136.5 north, 237.5 west. I don't even know if that's real. We have lost one crew overboard in attempting to recover the lost crew member. Our vessel is a 28-foot white sailboat with white sails and a black mast. We have 5 crew on board and 1 crew overboard, if you want to reiterate that. We have deployed a Dan buoy and a throwable. This is sailing vessel toast, 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 monitoring on channel 16. And is there any information that I didn't provide that you think would be very pertinent for that situation? Of course, but you already do. This,
But they'll ask you.
Yeah,
They will,
yeah. And if you are unaware if the person who fell overboard does or does not have a life jacket, do not guess. Do not guess. For not long life-threatening emergencies, as in motor failures, instead of Mayday, use pon, but all in the same order.
So what, a non-life threatening use
Pon.
So I actually didn't do that with a motor failure, and Spirit actually said I should have downgraded to Security.
Security? Okay.
We were a sailing vessel and we had to both in en route to help.
Okay. What he was saying is he actually had a motor failure and he said that he should have used Security instead of pon.
That's
So,
what the Coast Guard said I should.
okay, good.
So there's so the hierarchy is
Mayday.
life in danger.
Life in danger, crew or life, pon.
Vessel in danger.
Vessel in distress, but nobody in a life-threatening situation.
And security is.
Most of the time it's if you have to change navigation. So if you,
dead,
yeah.
Or you're coming through a tight passage.
And I guess a dead engine would kind of apply to drifting boats. So yeah, that makes sense. So that's a really good point.
So what would you use for pump?
Maybe demasting, but nobody's hurt.
Recovering dead bodies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, stuff that, so they're already, yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, kind of a deal there.
These are some helpful tips. This is from me. That's 2 things that I found kind of cool to hear about. One is in circumstances when you're in the life raft, avoid rationing your water for the first 24 hours. You just don't know how long you will need to stretch out your supply. And there will be a knife equipped in the life vest, and it will be located near the tether line, typically with a red cover over it. And that's there so you can cut away from the vessel immediately if needed. And finally, I've done this with both my first aid kits, is I've added a syringe to both of my kits. This allows you to conserve fresh water, clean wounds with a little bit of a pressure stream. Yeah, just a really cool thing to have in your kit if you don't already have it.
How does it consider fresh water?
Well, instead of running a faucet and trying to run your arm over, you can take a small amount of water out and just spray it into the infected area or the area you're looking to clean. And that is, I think I got one more slide here. And then we can just kind of, oh yeah, here you go. This is just one more thing. This was a slide that popped up. Forgive me if it's a little small, but these are weather forecast sources that you can pick up for free. This might not be a bad thing to take a screenshot of, but you'll see that they have how frequently they're updated and how long their duration extends out to. So before you get ready to do anything coastal, I would encourage you to look up as many of those as possible and review and prepare.
Which of the sort of online weather services do you prefer? Like there's Windy and Sailflow.
Mm-hmm.
What do you use?
You know, a lot of my clients like the predict wind, but they also like the idea that it does a little bit of plotting for them. I've been a bit of a fan of Windy, but I call her, she's not always very reliable. So I don't always know if I'm going to get the right forecast for Windy. Some of these that are actually provided by federal forecast institutes may offer good information, but I haven't taken a weather course yet, and I sure would like to. Okay, please. Yeah.
So I was just gonna ask, what do you see is the most reliable forecast in the Puget Sound? Curious if anyone has.
I would say windy.
Oh, so windy will pull one of these sources?
Well, these are worldwide. They're all in different areas. And these are.
Okay, windy, you can print this.
Mhm.
You get HRR. That says HRR is good for 15 days. It's not true.
Wait, Joe, they can't hear you.
HRR is good for 1 day. HRR X is good for 2 days.
Okay. Well, this is the information they provided me. I'm just
Okay.
repeating it.
HRR is going to give you the most reliable forecast.
Okay.
Any of our coasts.
Okay. Great. Did everyone hear that at home?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. That's it. That's it. The only thing I actually brought just to talk a little bit more about, I guess I probably shouldn't have pointed that down, are a couple new life jackets or different life jacket styles. Since everybody has a different style and a different preference, I just wanted to go over a couple of these real quick with you. So what I brought are 4 examples. Now, the first one, which US Sailing Association loves, absolutely loves, are the inflatables because people are more likely to keep them on.
Can you remove the share screen so we can see and hear you better?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I've already deployed this one, so it's not really done. How do I do this? I hit exit. Okay. Okay, all right, I think we're good there. All right, so if anybody has not opened up one of these before, I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you. Most of them are gonna be protected by a Velcro strap, or it could be like this particular model, which uses a zipper. And US Sailing recommends annually taking a look at it. So for this particular product, it is a simple pull. So this will not trigger in water. This you will have to either pull to start, or there'll be a breathe tube, takes about 4 breaths to be able to fill this thing up to capacity. When you're inspecting it, go ahead and fill it up and leave it overnight and come back to it and see if it's still nice and hard. The next product, there is one in between here that uses a little like aspirin pill to trigger the needle. The other one is this guy. Now this one also has equipped it on it a belt attach point, so you can tether in, but no leg straps. So not really the most ideal for offshore.
Fishery Supplies sells leg straps that you can put on most life jackets.
Oh, okay.
They're like $30.
Great.
I just tried the one that they gave me.
Yeah.
And it was not a front strap, it was a thigh strap.
Yeah.
And didn't work.
So this jacket ran me, I think this was closer to about a $200 and something jacket, a little bit more expensive, but see what we have inside here. Now, once when we open this up initially, we have a reflector. There's also a little location here where I could put a light beacon. Some of the MOBs, they'll even clip into the tube right here. So you can have them stowed away. This one also has a whistle that's attached to it. And this life jacket, which I've always really enjoyed about it, also even has a small utility pocket. So if I want to put anything else in there. The third one, I've done all of my races around the world with this jacket. This is one of my personal favorites. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it until I have it. Typically what I have is I have my EPIRB equipped here. I have my light here. I have a pouch that is going to have a whistle. Sometimes I haven't never used a reflective mirror, but I'll probably start using that as well right now. And typically I keep the VHF flipped off to the side right here on the strap. So this gives me everything I need. And I've always really enjoyed it. Now, when I was in the pool with this, I'll tell you, everyone else was sitting really well and they were upright. me, because I don't have any leg straps, this was trying to lift up a lot. So I found myself constantly having to hold it down. Wasn't the most ideal, but I'm starting to keep learning. And then this, Jeff's going to take home with him. This is the new, what they call a hybrid. They have a couple names for it. One of my crew used it in the most recent race to Alaska. Now this already has some foam buoyancy, and in the necessity that you need more buoyancy, you yank out this lever right here, and it inflates around the shoulders and around here on the chest. So it's a lot more low profile. I like these jackets a lot for us because it also keeps me really warm during our sailing trips. Yeah, exactly. However you can serve. And it also has a little utility pouch, so you could put gear, and there are little fairleads here to be able to put more items.
But does that have the same rotation when inflated?
I would have to double check. One of the things that they were saying is it does not until it is inflated. So before that, you don't have very many flotation that's provided.
It's like 7 pounds.
7 pounds.
But
About
once
that,
you
yeah.
blow it up, it's the same.
Yes.
I believe so. I would recommend doing your own research and making your own decisions. I just wanted to show you some examples of products. You guys are welcome to come put your hands on it and look around at all this stuff. This is an actual active EPIRB, so please do not turn it on.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
This is Pete. I add a couple of good thing on your life jackets there. A couple of things we've learned a little bit. Well, one thing is on the Chicago MAC and the MAC races up there, because of fatalities they've had and people who have flipped multi-hulls and been trapped in the cockpit and caught in lines and so forth. We all now carry what we're calling a Jesus stick, which is really a dive knife that's attached to the life jacket that can be one-handed, not on full out of your pocket, but a single one-handed to pull out and cut. If it's cut the nets, cut your inflatable jacket, cut lines that you're trapped around. But that's now mandatory for the Chicago MAC and the Bayview. I don't know if you guys have had that kind of situation out there on the West Coast, but certainly we now all carry a dive knife on all of our jackets.
I was involved in the 2011 Wingnuts disaster.
Yep. Wingnuts was an example of that.
And
Ron
I was
White out there.
involved in that one.
Yep. Yeah, Ron White flipped his cheeky monkey out in Lake Erie, and he was one of the ones that pushed for that as well. Got caught in the cockpit and struggled to get out. But yeah, we all now have been carrying that before they made it rules. But Chicago requires that. That's part of their SCRs.
One or two of the people that died were tethered to the boat and couldn't free themselves. When they overturned the boat, they found the people because we were looking for them.
Okay.
When they overturned the boat, they were connected.
We got to keep going on this. Margaret also had some stuff that she would like to share if she's still there. Are you there with us, Margaret?
Yeah, I'm still here. Give me a minute to get set back up again. I'll let you guys talk for a while and I'll get things set back up.
Oh, okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Margaret. She's going to share us some images and some details. What?
She needs a little bit of time.
Just a tiny bit of time.
Okay, so I have one comment.
Here, why don't you come up and let everyone see your face?
So hi. A couple things struck me that we haven't talked about yet. One was the Lifesling. They were saying that basically when you're using a Lifesling, you're going to pull someone out of the water vertically. And the rule of thumb apparently for that is if the person is conversant and coherent, then go ahead and pull them up vertically. If they've been in the water long enough that they are not speaking and not reacting, you do not want to pull them up vertically. You need to keep them horizontal, and you need to keep them in that horizontal position from the time you take them out of the water all the way to the time you get them down to the bottom of the boat and put them in the burrito wrap. And that's because there's a risk of heart attack, their complications. I'm not an expert, but that's one thing that really struck me, in the rescue process that you had to be cognizant of.
I have a question for you guys. What did they say about tethers and how did that relate to multi-hull? Did you guys have a discussion about tethers?
So I think with all of the, hey folks, that's Liz. With all of the man overboard or crew overboard items, the first thing was stay on the boat. and especially for multi-hulls where we often don't have lifelines, things of that nature. Tethering 2 jack lines, if you can stay on the boat, that's always a million times better than having someone in the water and have to worry about recovery. So they were very strongly encouraging them.
Yeah, one thing to add to that is when you set up your jack lines, set it so that when you do clip on, that the person can't fall off the back beam and drag in the water. You can actually set your clip in, so the worst you are is you're just hanging over the back of the beam. So the way you do your jack lines is very important because you do not want to drag somebody at the speeds we go. So that's one thing that I always clip in a spot where they, even if they fell off, they're maybe just hanging off the beam. They're not dragging in the water.
So I think one other thing that I think got mentioned very briefly for multi-hulls, where we often have the challenge that the boat can invert and stay inverted. It may be worth looking at. You often have 2 choices in your tethers. You have a standard one that's fairly well shackled and clipped to you, where you might need to cut it away. There's also ones that are available with a quick disconnect.
Yep.
So disconnect may be worth looking into, especially for the catamaran and trimaran folks.
Did anybody try to make the point that they'd rather not be tethered because that's an additional, if you do go over, it's an additional thing to have to undo? I mean, did anybody make that point or make that argument?
You know, they actually made a big discussion about this. If you don't mind, I'll just go real quick on this. One was to have 2 different lengths, a 6 and a 3 foot. And the second is to make sure that you do have a quick release, ability to quick release your shackle. You should never have the traditional clip connected to your vest. Yeah, you should not have the carabiner clip. You should have a very simple, more snap shackle with a lanyard or a ball on it that you can pull and release very easily.
Under load. And they,
So yes, they did cover that. And again, there's a total of 20 hours that we spent learning. And so there's a lot of great details.
so the big deal, and the thing also that they talked about was that if you fall off, it's going to take someone maybe 20 minutes to, come around, pick you up. Then if it's really rough out, it's going to be a real pain to get you in the boat. You're going to be in the water, maybe you're in the water for that hour, so the whole thing is to stay on. So I think, floating around, because I used to, before I did the course, that was my plan, because I mostly in Puget Sound and never far away. You fall off the boat, I always felt that I was going to be safer just floating around, have my radio call for help. But the problem is that, when you're out and it's colder, you really just don't want to fall off. So tether.
I'll add one more thing to that, guys. I know on our boat with all the stuff that we've done, and we had a man overboard in the middle of Lake Michigan on a delivery for the MAC race at midnight, lost somebody overboard. We did get them back. But again, the issue of making sure they're tethered to the boat at all times. I mean, that the person untethered and didn't reattach when they should have. So that's critical. The other thing here that we've eliminated is, I know this is, we've all probably done it, but the guys like to go off the back of the boat and pee off the back of the boat. You might be able to do that when there's no wind, but we don't do it at all anymore. We have a bottle down below. We do not do that. The risk of falling or having an issue with that, that's just too high risk from our perspective. So something just take into account.
Cold water immersion. And I recommend all you guys in Seattle go out to Alki Beach Saturday morning or go out there and talk to the swimmers that are out there swimming. They're swimming year round in the Puget Sound. They're in the water for well over an hour. Vast majority of them aren't wearing any sort of wetsuit. They're just in the swimsuits, including December, January timeframe. And you talk to them and you have questions about how do you keep from getting hypothermia. And every single one of them is dealing with keeping their head warm. They're not worried about their body. And so they're all putting multiple caps on their head to keep their head warm. But I think what's even more interesting is when you start talking to them, is they're all packing their ears. You sit there and say the way they're preventing getting hypothermia being in the water. And some of these people are swimming from Tacoma to Seattle. I mean, they're world-class swimmers. You go down there and you'll find people that have swum the English Channel. They're swimming all the way across the Puget Sound. And every one of them that's doing those long distances, packing their ears. And they're absolutely not letting any water at all get into their ears. And then they're putting 2 or 3 swim caps over top of that. And then they're going into full water for 2-3 hours at a time.
So,
Yeah. So I used to do a lot of water rescue practice and teaching because I was a raft guide, CPAP instructor, and firefighter. Fort Townsend fire boat. So we had a small, I haven't done much sailing, just but one thing that's really interesting to me is for all people that I've sent in the water and I've gone in the water, nobody's ever done reflex but one person. And that was one guy on raft training, we were training raft guides in the spring. So I don't know, I thought that was interesting. And then on the fireboat, particularly, we did a lot of training and testing of flares and things. And the best one that worked was the one that kind of floats above the water. I forget what it's called.
Are you talking about?
Smoke, yeah, kind of smoke. It goes
Oh,
up.
you're just talking about the Solus smoke canister.
Yeah, and so we had somebody on the other side, of course, tested on them all. That one lasted the longest.
It sure does. It's rather large and it has to be.
Doc, can you fill us in on that? We couldn't hear any of that.
I don't know. They can't hear you.
Sorry.
Not
sorry,
that.
it's the
Yeah, we're loud people here.
Hi, my name's Andre. I'm a guest today, but I've done a lot of cold water rescue and I used to be with the fire department out in Fort Townsend. And I was just telling everybody that we used to test all the flares and methods of pulling people in from the fire department boat. And the flares that work the best are the smoke flares that basically you could see it for a long time because it would hover on the water and then we could go and rescue those people. But the other thing I was going to mention, I know in R2K, I have a lot of friends who do it. You might not have a big enough boat, but one of the best things to use is kind of this stainless steel rescue litter to get people back. You just lower it over the side and they come in 2 parts too, so they don't take a lot of room. You can lower it over the side and then roll people into it and then bring them up. Because I know from doing a lot of rafting rescues and sea kayaking rescues, it's really hard to get someone in a boat, even if they're wearing a life jacket. So I was always in the raft, I'd always prefer to pull them in by having them face out and pull them in over me. And then other people like to pull them in facing you so they can see what's going on. But if you test both and you're in a tight situation, you'll be impressed which one works better and faster. So I was just going to bring those 2 things up. And then 2 of us, I race out here with Sloop. And I still have my river rescue vest from whitewater kayaking because I used to certify whitewater kayak instructors. And that's the bomb. And our foredeck guy wears one too. And it also has a beaner. So if you fall in the water, you know, you can clip into the beaner and then you can also quick release the belt if you get in big trouble. And it works really well. You can move around a lot. But I also have, you know, that inflatable one and all the other traditional ones. But when push comes to shove, I wear the whitewater vest.
I second the whitewater vest. I 2 of my crew have those, and with some modifications, you have to add they don't all come with crotch straps. And they're gonna keep you a lot warmer. I mean, yeah, they're really good. Yeah.
Could you share the information on that rescue litter? What was the name of that rescue litter? And how much freeboard does the boat need, or how can the boat have with that rescue litter lifting people up there? I know there are some rescue litters that work from a raft, but they wouldn't work on a boat with any freeboard.
So we're going to share that on the chat, so folks should be seeing that very shortly. So I just wanted to add one thing that struck me as part of the crew overboard. I actually was more confident in myself, my gear, my life preserver, and same thing with some of, let's say, the more professional crew that you might have on board for a race. But a lot of us also are going out with less competent crew. So whether that's family, friends, things of that nature, it might be easier conditions, but just one thing to think about is both if you go overboard, making sure that they're able to recover you. The other side of it is a lot of times I'll take out folks on my boat. If we're racing and things of that nature, everyone's in a dry suit. But if we're not racing, if it's more of a casual type outing, folks will be in more or less impromptu, patched together foul weather gear at best. So I actually walked away. I was much more concerned about those conditions. And so just think through all of the cases where and different types of crew that you'll have on board. And are there things you're going to change about how you operate your boat? What your rules are for folks coming on board? Even as simple as mandatory life vests, even under more benign conditions. Figure out ahead of time where you want to set that for your boat and your guests, as well as make sure that you are planning, because it's drastically different if someone goes over the side in blue jeans and no life vest versus a dry suit and a offshore Mustang survival inflatable PFD. So just something that I definitely struck me when I was going.
Let me ask, when you guys were in the pool, you did pool training, right? Did you notice, people having trouble just moving about? Is there inflatable life vests impair mobility to the extent that, well, that doesn't look so hot, or foul weather gear?
Yeah, I wore everything, hat, everything. So what I had to do, I have an inflatable, I have what do I have? Spin lock, thank you. So I was having to swim like this.
Yeah.
Right. Fine, that worked fine, but versus, you got all that inflation.
Spinlock has a lot of great accessories that are built into it. They had that beacon light that came up.
Yep.
You had a little knife in there. You had the straps that were tucked in.
Yep, and I actually added a knife instead of the little hook that it comes with. Added a knife I can open with one hand that's got a great serration on it, so I'm really comfortable cutting anything away. There's that story of somebody going overboard with the rope around their ankle. Yes, if you're getting dragged, you're probably not going to be able to move your arms, but
so you felt you had full traditional foul weather gear?
Yeah, it with layers. One thing to think about is how much more you weigh when you get out of the water, or you're being pulled up, right? So that Lifesling and using a tackle is really important to have that advantage, because somebody's going to weigh 40 more pounds with all that water. I wore all my fleece. When I got out of the pool, I was giggling because the water was just pouring and pouring out of me as I was walking. And even I could feel, the rubber under my feet by the pool area. I was, because I weighed that much more. It was very uncomfortable.
Margaret might have some photos of it, because they also had 2 deployed life rafts in there too that we were able to, climb in and climb out of.
Yeah,
it was really good fun.
It was really great. Buying inflatable, it was kind of due to have a new cartridge. So, knowing that it deploys, knowing that I could get to all my rescue gear in my pockets and everything, and just kind of having that muscle memory of where things are at, how to grab them. And I wore my gloves even. I had to take my gloves off to adjust my crotch straps if I wanted to make them tighter. I couldn't get my thumb in there, but flip back on. Yeah.
Clutch straps are critical. Think right out of your life jacket. You won't have those clutch straps tight. I found that out. We talked about swimming backwards. Mm-hmm. So that was something pulling someone in. Lifesling, probably better than pulling backwards. Forward, they're facing the direction.
Margaret is ready with those.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to bring something up. I was in it too. This is Sean. And the first thing that they had in all the videos that all this started with was the number one thing was to stay on the boat.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't maybe stressed enough. They did put a lot of emphasis on it, which is good. But obviously if you don't stay on the boat, then you've got to do all this other stuff. And it was, eye-opening to be, I went in with all my foul weather gear on, bibs, my extra tough rubber boots, the jacket that I was wearing last season, my Spinlock 5D deck vest, and I'd never swam in that vest. I was very curious to see what it was going to be like with the inflatable flotation and with where that flotation is situated compared to the whitewater rescue vests that I have previously worn in my whitewater activities. And the inflatable vests, from what I could tell, they are not designed to be active swimming vests. They're designed to keep your head above water. That's all they're designed to do. If you want to go swimming after your boat as it's sailing away from you, you're not going to be able to do it in any vest. And you're probably not going to be able to do it with fins on either. But yes, your mobility is limited a little bit more with the inflatable vests. However, unless you're in a really evacuated dry suit, as in having all the air inside the dry suit out, you're going to have so much clothing on that's going to be so wet and heavy. It's not going to matter if you have an inherently buoyant PFD that allows you to swim better, because all that other stuff is going to prevent you from swimming. It's going to prevent you from swimming. So it was pretty telling to see that really the only swimming motion that really worked was the backstroke, basically a back butterfly stroke, like Jess showed, and a scissor kick to some extent. But with the boots on, and they do say to leave your boots on, which I see why, because they want to reduce the amount of water flushing through your clothes and whatnot. Your feet really aren't effective. So all you really got are your arms, and that's the only stroke that really works. And it really, with all the clothes that we typically have on, again, unless you have a dry suit on, you're not really going to do a whole lot of swimming. It's just, you're not going to be able to. So I guess that's what I got from that.
Thanks, Sean. Margaret, would you be ready with that presentation or that piece of the photos and video?
Yeah, I am. Question, I was just chatting with Pete. So I'm thrilled that we've got a Multihull member for the US Sailing Safety at Sea Committee. I'm on the committee as well, and I really think that there is a need for research, overboard research for multi-hulls. So Pete, do you know, is that going to be involved in June?
Actually, I've been working with, again, just trying to pull the names back up here, but Mr. Dick York, been working with him, and we're actually looking at doing something in Texas with that and kind of working through some of those options ourselves down there. Will be end of June in Milwaukee racing the Queen's Cup, but right now I can't do the June event, but we are looking at doing that down in Texas, in Austin, actually.
Okay. Would you let me know when you do that?
Sure.
The Sailing Foundation was going to be involved in the research that's going to be going on in June in Rhode Island for the updates on crew overboard, and one of our priorities is to get research, multi-hull research as well. So
I know we're working with Richard
DeLumon.
Yeah, with Storm Trysail as far as the one in Texas. And so again, I'm sure I'm writing your name down here as well, that we need to get that shared across the board.
Sure. They both know me. Dick knows me. So
okay.
I've been pestering him about the topic of multi-hulls and the need for that. So excellent. So I'm just going to share here. There's a request for, hey, some pictures and videos of what was the Safety at Sea like. So I've got some videos, just kind of summary videos for Safety at Sea over the last couple years. So I'll give you all a break and let you see that.
We're talking about whether or not they wanted to have automatic inflated life jackets on a boat that was upside down.
It's got a long rope that you're supposed to tie to the boat. Anybody read stories about how they inflated the raft and it took off? Well, the raft was inflated, but it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat. And it was supposed to tie to the boat
she's floating in the water, those D-rings are underwater and they're hidden underneath the bladder to protect her.
Same spot.
Yeah, same high school. Same great weather too. Same fire guy.
And they'll bend the handle. So that's what happened with this fire extinguisher. And we see these, you know, once a month or so in our shop. So it happens just. Red ball at the end, and poof, it goes out of the metal end. So you hold the plastic end, it goes out of the metal end. Now watch the difference in intensity. Wow. So you see the difference between the Coast Guard approved flare and the SOLAS flare? SOLAS flare exceeds the minimum requirement of the Coast Guard approved flare. Burns brighter, drops no slag. So in your life raft, they pack SOLAS flares because they don't want that molten material dropping down. There it goes, there it is. So it looks very different.
I know. I'm coming for you.
So that was a video from last year. I haven't yet had a chance to put together the video kind of summarizing this year, but that probably look fairly familiar to those of you who were there this year.
Excellent. Thank you, Margaret. Hey, Margaret, real quick question. Did the Lost and Found by any chance find a thermal mug, a West Marine blue thermal mug?
Who was that who asked?
That was Scott Wallingford.
Yeah, so I left it, if you call the high school, I left it with the high school people.
Thank you.
And you know, and I had just bragged to everybody at the end of the class, you know, that we always get things left behind, and that this was a year when we didn't have things left behind, and then I found that blue thermal mug. I was like, darn it, because we worked so hard to try to not have the lost and found situation happen. Because a lot of things, it's just it's very difficult to get things back to people. So
well, yeah. You're welcome for keeping up your imperfect record. I'll go and collect it from him. Thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the safety at sea training. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. So I'm the organizer for the Sailing Foundation Safety at Sea training here. I'm just going to kind of talk about what the Sailing Foundation is and what we do. So the Sailing Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're 51 years old now. Originally organized as an America's Cup campaign by some Seattle area sailors in the early 70s. And when we lost the trials, the money from that, the boat was sold and the money was invested in the financial backing that became the Sailing Foundation. So we've been involved in safety at sea development for a long time. Most all of you, I'm sure, know that we're the organization that developed the Lifesling, and we're still responsible for research and development of the Lifesling and ongoing research in overboard rescue and safety at sea. What we're doing right now, we're supporting development of US Sailing Safety at Sea online courses. So for those of you who took those online courses, and I think you've all agreed, it's an excellent online class. The Sailing Foundation was one of the groups that helped sponsor the development of those online courses, both with our volunteer time and money, along with Cruising Club of America and Storm Trysail and the New York Yacht Club. We still are offering some of the best safety at sea courses in the US, as reported by moderators and people. And this year, we also serve some of the most sailors of any group in the US that's putting on safety at sea training. So serving 180 sailors this year with our safety at sea training. And I know I spoke to you all last year and you were all very clear that you wanted safety at sea training. And so we're delivering safety at sea training. For those of you who weren't able to get in the year before, You know, with 180 spots this year, the enrollment, rather than closing in a few minutes, we had enrollment open for over 2 months. So that means anybody who wanted to take safety at sea training here locally was able to take safety at sea training. We did the first course this last Sunday, the one in Bainbridge, and in 2 weeks, we're doing the second course down in Vancouver, Washington, to serve the Portland community. Coming up in June 2023, we're partnering with the US Naval Academy, the US Sailing Safety at Sea Committee, other groups for the National Crew Overboard Research Symposium in Rhode Island. And that's what I was asking Pete about. So I guess they're splitting out the multi-hull piece of that. But so part of what the Sailing Foundation does in our Safety at Sea mission is to continue to be involved in that research. And so I'm looking forward to that, because it's been over 10 years since we've had a national symposium really looking at doing research on what are the best practices around crew overboard recovery, because boats change, equipment's change. There's some new techniques that are being introduced. The other key thing that the Sailing Foundation does is youth sailing. And for those of you who are not aware of it, we are basically an all volunteer organization. So all the time that I put into the organizing the safety at sea is volunteer time. We're not paid. I had a team of 20 people putting on the safety at sea training, all volunteers, everybody volunteering their time. The Sailing Foundation does have one employee, and that employee is our youth sailing director. So in the winter of 2013, 2014, the Sailing Foundation had a vision that let's get serious about improving youth sailing in the Pacific Northwest, realizing that the future of our sport is really dependent upon bringing more young people up in this sport, both as racers and cruisers. So in 2014, we hired a full-time director of youth sailing, Andrew Nelson. Many of you may have known him, and we were very fortunate. Andrew was awesome, and Andrew stayed with us. He finally moved on to another job this fall, but he did great things in the youth sailing community here in the Pacific Northwest, both for high schools and colleges during that time. And so really the mission was getting more kids sailing and also raising the caliber of youth sailing in our region. What we're doing literally today, literally what's going on right now this week, we've been doing a national search to replace that youth sailing director. So the money that the Sailing Foundation raises, everything that we do, again, there's basically because we're all volunteering our time, the money that comes into the organization through donations and elsewhere goes to funding that position of the youth sailing director. And so we hope to be hiring a new youth sailing director. We've been interviewing people from around the country and hope to fill that spot soon, because the youth sailing initiative is key in terms of the impact that it's having in our local communities around boating safety, both around high school sailing. Also, we run most of the US Sailing Level 1 certifications, which are the sailing instructors that teach dinghies and teach youth sailing. We have an annual coaches clinic. We did it last month, very popular, an all-day clinic that supports the local sailing coaches from around the Pacific Northwest. 80 of them coming together to share practices, mentoring and training and so forth. We do a lot of community outreach to support sailing in the Pacific Northwest. Many of you may know Dick Rose, who is our current president, who's on the World Sailing Group that establishes the racing rules of sailing. So it's really great to work with such luminaries and the contributions to youth sailing. So I think this chart kind of summarizes what we've done with the youth sailing side of our house, which is really dramatically growing youth sailing here in the Pacific Northwest since 2014, when we established the position of the full-time director of youth sailing for the Pacific Northwest. the quality and the quality of sailors and sailing, and the number of kids involved in the Pacific Northwest, it really took off from that. So what can the Sailing Foundation, what do we need? Well, we're always looking for more volunteers. If you're interested in getting involved, we always have needs for fundraising, Lifesling training programs. I've been teaching all the Lifesling training programs in the Pacific Northwest for a couple of years, and I would love to involve other people in that. Love to have more people, volunteers with our Safety at Sea programs. I mentioned our team was 20 people to put on the one that we had on Sunday, and that was for 80 participants. In 2 weeks, I'm running another one for 100 participants, and it takes a small army to put these on, to put them on at a high quality level. And then we can always use volunteers with the youth programs as well. Financial donations, we very much appreciate, because again, we've got a full-time employee to support with that Pacific Northwest Youth Sailing Director, not only their salary and benefits, but also we have coach boats and trailers and outboard engines and all the other things that go along with running that program. We offer scholarships to kids who need it, so that we can keep sailing available to a diverse group of kids throughout the Pacific Northwest, and doing the onboard crew overboard research. And since we're a volunteer organization, 100% of your donation is applied directly to funding our programs to make the sport of sailing a safer one for everyone involved. So there's a QR code there. You know, if you hold up your phone, it'll take you right to a page where you can learn more about the organization, make donations there. But you can also look us up, the Sailing Foundation and Northwest Youth Sailing in the Pacific Northwest. So that's the backstory behind the Safety at Sea program, who puts it on, the other things that we do. And I'm so excited that you were all so inspired by the training that you are doing the class this evening. So great to see that. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Margaret.
Well, should I start recording now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take the class. It was worth every penny.
Oh yeah, the second, third, and fourth slide. Here, let me do that real quick.
Also, go practice.
Yeah.
Go use your equipment. If you get the equipment, don't just put it on your boat. Go play with it.
That Bill.
Yeah.
Sean. Oh, that's Sean.
Yeah. Go play with it.
All right. Somebody wants to
Set it up on your boat. See if it works. See what doesn't work. Fix it.
You should go try to do a man overboard on rough down before you head out to the race.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We had.
I'll do the dry suit.
During that trip.
You did?
Well, yeah, well, if you count that one, it was twice.
Okay, so that was slide 2, which just talked about this. Here's slide 3. Slide 4. Slide 5. Slide 6. That's nothing.
I was wondering, did they talk about the reach, throw, go, don't go?
You know, one thing I neglected to do when I was in the pool, this is Sean again, was try and swim under one of the life rafts with my PFD on to try and simulate what it might be like to try and get out from underneath a net of a trimaran if it was upside down. I kind of really wish I had done that, but I forgot about it.
I hear you. I ended up, they asked me to dive down and find that little knife that came off, and I couldn't even do it with my little floatable. I had to take everything off. So a lot of fun though. And the pool wasn't terribly cold too, which was great.
Yeah, well, that's definitely easier. But you know, with regards to practice, I was talking with Jeff a little bit, and you know, it's